effective is benchmarking for an IR team?
So we're really excited about it being in market now. This has been something that we started the development of. As I mentioned, we launched the first iteration of engagement analytics back in June of last year. So we've got a big team on it. We're very focused on being able to bring all this data together. And so benchmarking is really the first example of us being able to look at it on aggregate, look at all of the data and then start comparing companies against their peers, company against their sector, companies against market caps, geographically. There is a million different ways that we can cut and slice and dice the data. And so benchmarking is really the first release of that, where we're able to say, you as an issuer, how are you comparing against your peers in sector? But it's really just the beginning of what we're able to do with the data. We have other work that is ongoing now around a project that we call Index. And this is where we're able to look at even more broadly from a very high level and slice and dice this data and run analytics against it to really expose kind of very unique insights. That ultimately this is all about providing kind of quantitative measures around the effectiveness of IR programs and helping IROs prioritize what are they doing in their program and how to be most effective at really attracting and engaging investors out in the market.
And you obviously said, being compared with your peers. How important is it for an IR specific team to be compared against other, their peers?
Well, I think that's where the whole idea is that it gives, it's all about relative performance. So similar to the market, that if you are an individual stock and that stock may go up or down and have various different levels of performance, that is interesting, but it's not nearly as useful as relatively against their peers. So if all peers in a particular sector have all been hit and they're all down, well, that's very different than if all peers are at 52-week highs and there's one particular company that is very low. Well, then that company has a problem, whereas the other is really kind of the ebbs and flows of the market. I think that's the same thing when we look at this type of data that we're talking about. In isolation, analytics, if you look at website analytics or any type of kind of behavioral analytics, on their own in isolation, they are interesting, but not useful. They only become useful once you benchmark. Once you know the relative performance of that measure against your peers, then you begin to know, is this good or bad? Otherwise, you're just kind of looking at a fancy dashboard that doesn't really help you.
And if we kind of loop this back to engagement analytics, how can IROs kind of benefit from it? And also, is it effective to target retail investors?
Retail is a little bit more difficult from a individual perspective. Now, what we're able to do is we do see retail trading platforms. So we can see whether it's like Robinhood or TD Ameritrade or what have you, we can see there's a large amount of retail trading coming from this particular platform. But from that, being able to kind of drill down into targeting retail investors or really kind of, again, when you look at retail, I think what you get is this is interesting, but it doesn't drive explicit kind of tactics. Having said that, there are many tactics to kind of drive retail interest. However, our focus has been more so on the institutional side.
And I wonder if you can share any upcoming nuggets with us on any updates for Q4 for the rest of this year?
So I've shared a couple, but they are really kind of continuing to iterate on this, that we think that this data asset that we've built is something that has a huge amount of potential. And so benchmarking is the first piece, as well as institutional targeting. But there's many other kind of new features that we're working on right now. The other thing which is kind of exciting is that we are also releasing a starter edition of engagement analytics to all Q4 clients. So now if you are a Q4 client, whether you run just your website with us or you handle website and events or CRM, et cetera, now engagement analytics, the starter version of it is available to all clients across the platform. So we're super excited about that because that means around 2,500 issuers or so will have access to this data, and so we're really looking forward to the feedback that we get from all of those clients to help us really make, to kind of continually improve and extract the really interesting data that comes from the platform.